Hi, students, let's get started with the subject Social Science, Chapter 7. The Gupta Era, an age of tireless creativity. Neither force nor mere diplomacy can eliminate evil, nor is righteousness upheld by flattery alone. It is wisdom and knowledge that truly strengthen a kingdom, not indulgence in luxuries. Klitsa in Raghuvansham. Fig. 7.1. Landscape of Ajanta caves dating from the 2nd century BCE to about 480 CE. Dhruv and Bhavisha had just returned from their journey to the Panya kingdom. They had seen the splendid markets, taken a short trip on a ship, and met some Roman traders buying pearls. Now they were itching to use Itisa again and jump a few centuries. What would that be like? They wondered. Will the cities be the same? What about the people and society? Would they have changed? What kind of governance would they have? Would there be new literature, new art? They could not wait to find out and were soon whisked away too. Fig. 7.2. Empires and kingdoms during the period from 3rd to 6th century CE. Bhavisha, my head is spinning. There are so many kingdoms and empires. How am I ever going to remember all of this? Dhruv, do not worry, Bhavisha. Let us understand what is happening and we'll remember it. Bhavisha, is there anything in this period that we can see back home? Dhruv, let us use our time machine and find out. Bhavisha activates Itisa and they jump to Mehrauli in Delhi, where the famous Iron Pillar of Delhi stands. They overhear a tour guide nearby who was explaining the significance of this pillar. Fig. 7.3. Iron Pillar, Mehrauli, Delhi. Tour guide, this iron pillar of Delhi is over 1,600 years old and still stands tall without rusting. It is a testament to the advanced metallurgical skills of ancient India. Arjuna and Kara in battle, a sculpted depiction from the Mahabharata. Both the Pallavas and Kmarpa are mentioned in the Prega Prashasti we saw earlier. During his southern campaigns, Samudragupta defeated a Pallav ruler but did not take over the region. Dhruv, oh wow! There is something written on it, but I cannot read it. Bhavisha, I wonder who made this? And why? Let's hear what the guide uncle has to say about this. Tour guide, the 6-ton pillar was erected during the reign of Chandragupta II, a ruler of the Gupta dynasty. It was probably erected first in front of the Udaygiri caves, Madhya Pradesh, and brought to Delhi a few centuries later. It was dedicated to Vihu, and its inscriptions celebrate the king's achievements. Both. That is so fascinating. We would love to learn more about this king and his empire. Let us begin this exciting journey into the history of the Gupta Empire. Don't miss out. Picture leaving a bicycle out in the rain for just 1 year. It would soon show signs of rust. Yet this ancient pillar, standing under the open sky for centuries, remains unaltered. Scientists have tried to uncover its secret, and they believe it is because a unique thin layer, created by the special iron used and oxygen from the air, forms on the surface of the iron, protecting it from corrosion. A new power emerges by the 3rd century CE, the Kuha Empire, which spread over the north and northwest of the subcontinent, started to weaken. New kingdoms emerged, setting the stage for a fresh period of consolidation, and the new actor on this stage was the Gupta dynasty. There are various theories on the origin of the Guptas. However, it is widely believed that they emerged in a region near present-day Uttar Pradesh as regional rulers. Over time, they rose to prominence and established a powerful empire. The Gupta period is considered remarkable in Indian history and is marked by significant developments in many areas. The fields of art, architecture, literature and science flourished, particularly during the time of Chandragupta II, and that legacy continues even today. The inscription on the iron pillar in Delhi speaks of a king named Chandra, who has been identified with Chandragupta II, not to be confused with Chandragupta Maurya from the Maurya dynasty, whom we met earlier. Chandragupta II, also known as Vikramaditya, was one of the renowned rulers of the Gupta dynasty. He was a devotee of Vihu, and his mount, Vahana, Garua, often appears on many inscriptions. Don't miss out. Have you noticed the 2 in Chandragupta II's name? Historians added this number because there was another Chandragupta before him, his grandfather. This tradition of naming the first son after his grandfather is followed by some Indian families even today. Chandragupta I, as he is referred to, played a crucial role in the early expansion of the Gupta Empire. He is remembered for his coins and strategic alliances, which helped him consolidate his power and lay the foundation for a strong empire. Fig. 7.4. Gold coin featuring King Chandragupta I with his queen, Kumradev, on the reverse side, a seated goddess identified as Lakshmi. The warrior king, the Praiga Prashasti, a pillar inscription in Prayagraj, praises the achievements of Samudragupta, Chandragupta II's father. According to the author of the inscription, the court poet Harisena, the king's ambition was to be Dharabandha, or to unify the earth. To this end, he fought many wars, defeating kings, taking over their kingdoms and expanding his empire. Many defeated kings were reinstated and offered tribute to Samudragupta, while others, fearing his might, submitted without protest. Harisena also wrote about how the king supported art, learning and trade, making his kingdom rich and successful. Samudragupta himself is portrayed as a veena player in one of the coins he minted, Fig. 7.6. Fig. 7.5. An inscription by Harisena. Fig. 7.6. A seated Samudragupta playing the veena, on the reverse side, goddess Lakshmi. Think about it. Why do you think kings chose to proclaim their achievements in the form of inscriptions? Fig. 7.7. This coin depicts the sacrificial horse of the Ashwamedha Yagya. The reverse depicts the queen holding a chauri, fly whisk. Some literary sources give us descriptive information about rulers, kingdoms, and the people. The Vihu Pura, for instance, specifies the key regions of the empire. The Gupta dynasty will rule over Anugaga, the Middle Gangetic Basin, Praiga, present-day Prayagraj, Sketa, Ayodhya, and Magad, approximately Bihar, and all the surrounding regions. But at its peak, the Gupta Empire covered a larger area than this, most of present-day North and West India, along with parts of Central and East India. Imagine what it would have entailed to move a whole army of soldiers, elephants, horses, cooks, and other support staff, as well as the supplies to feed them all. Clearly, the tributary kings must have been asked to provide for these. Fig. 7.8. The Gupta Empire's extent. Note that the Vakas were the allies of the Guptas. The Guptas claim to have conquered parts of the east coast, down to the Pallavas, whom they may have briefly subdued. A traveler's account of Indian society in the Gupta age. Chinese traveler Faxian, pronounced as Faxian, visited India in the early 5th century CE. He set out on this long and difficult pilgrimage to visit sacred Buddhist sites, learn from renowned Indian scholars and collect manuscripts of Buddhist texts so he could take them back to China. Faxian travelled extensively across India, observing her culture, governance and society, and recorded his experiences and observations for the people of his homeland, and for us too, since his travelogue has survived to this day. Below is an excerpt from his travelogue, where he records his observations of the society in the Gupta era. The people are numerous and happy. They have no need to register households or attend to officials. Those who farm royal land pay a portion of their grain. The king's guards and attendants have salaries. The cities are the greatest in the Middle Kingdom, i.e., the Gangetic Plains, and the inhabitants are rich, prosperous, and practice kindness and righteousness. Heads of Vaishya families, i.e., merchants or traders, establish houses for charity and medicines. The poor, orphans and the sick are cared for. Doctors provide treatment, and the needy receive food and medicines. The city has many wealthy Vaishya elders and foreign merchants, with beautiful homes. The lanes are kept in good order. Excerpts from historical accounts like Faxian's are valuable sources, but they reflect only the writer's perspective and focus at one point in time and for a limited portion of the society they describe. Let us not, however, forget that elsewhere in his travelogue, Faxian also describes the harsh treatment of the Chanlas, who were regarded as outcasts and lived outside the city limits. Just as you may have perceived the excerpt from Faxian's travelogue differently from your friends, a group of historians may examine the same source and draw varied interpretations from it. Historians then look at more sources to corroborate their understanding. This reminds us of the need to assess multiple sources, perspectives, and interpretations before drawing conclusions. Glimpses of the Gupta Empire governance and administration. Let us observe the map in Fig. 7.8. You will notice that many kingdoms coexisted during the same period. Some of them may have been at war with each other in their ambition to expand their control. Recall what we saw earlier about Koilaya's ideas on ruling a kingdom. He advised rulers to form alliances, Mitra, as one of the components of the Saptanga. The Gupta rulers used various strategies, including military conquests, diplomacy, and alliances, to expand and consolidate their vast empire. The last method included matrimonial alliances. A well-known example is that of Prabhat Gupta, daughter of Chandragupta II, who was married to a prince of the Vakaka kingdom, the Gupta's neighbors to the south. Tragically, the Vakaka prince died early, making her the regent ruler of the kingdom. During her reign, she ensured that the ties between the Vakas and the Guptas remained strong. One of her inscriptions describes her as a mother of two kings, referring to her two sons who ascended the Vakaka throne. As a devotee of Vihu like her father, Prabhat is also associated with the construction of 7 temples dedicated to this god and his avatars. Some of these temples are in Ramgiri, Ramtek Hill, in present-day Maharashtra. Fig. 7.9. The Keval Narsimha temple dedicated to Narsimha, one of the avatars of Vihu. According to some historians, this temple was constructed by Prabhat Gupta's daughter in her memory. The Gupta Empire had a well-organized system of administration. Instead of controlling everything from a central authority, they divided the empire into provinces and granted land to local rulers, priests, and chieftains. These land grants were carefully inscribed on copper plates to keep accurate records, many of which have been discovered by archaeologists in recent times. This system helped ensure proper tax collection and allowed the Gupta rulers to govern efficiently while still giving local leaders some control over their regions. Thriving trade, the primary source of revenue of the Guptas was land tax. Other sources included fines, taxes on mines, irrigation, trade and crafts. This revenue was used for administration, maintaining the army, building temples and infrastructure, and supporting scholars and artists. As we see once again, for such an empire to sustain itself, it had to promote a vibrant internal and external trade. In the Gupta era, India traded with the Mediterranean world, Southeast Asia and China, exporting textiles, spices, ivory and gemstones. The Indian Ocean Trade Network connected Indian ports to distant markets. One significant stop on the way to the Mediterranean markets was Socotra Island, strategically located in the Arabian Sea. Archaeological evidence, such as pottery, inscriptions in the Brahmi script, and designs such as a Buddhist stupa, has established the presence of Indian traders there over several centuries, apart from traders from Egypt, Arabia, Rome and Greece. This small island carries evidence of the rich cultural exchanges that trade promoted in the Indian Ocean. New ideas and wonders, the classical age, as we saw, Gupta rulers were devout followers of Vihu. This is often reflected in their coins and inscriptions. However, they also supported other traditions and schools of thought. They patronized Buddhist institutions, including the renowned Nalanda University and several other Buddhist viharas, monastery. Their approach was inclusive and open. We will explore these institutions further in higher grades. Fig. 7.11 Remains of Nalanda University. Indeed, the prolonged period of peace and stability during the Gupta period promoted notable achievements in various fields, leading some historians to label this period the classical age of India. It was also the time when knowledge from previous eras was consolidated and compiled into numerous texts. Sanskrit literature flourished, with Klitsai's works and many major puras. Ryabha and Varhamihira recorded major advancements in mathematics and astronomy, while medical texts compiled and refined medical theories and practices. Metallurgy also progressed, as we saw with the rust-resistant iron pillar. This stability strengthened the economy, allowing the state to support scholars, artists, and scientists, leading to cultural and intellectual growth. Chandragupta II kept himself surrounded by many learned men, poets and artists, and his patronage of such diverse talent enriched his court greatly. Let us take a look at some of the remarkable figures of this period. Fig. 7.12 Chandragupta II goes to war, an artist's imagination from the 1920s. Ryabha. He lived in Kusumpura, near present-day Patna, a famous center of learning, around 500 CE, and authored a short treatise of mathematics and astronomy called Ryabhaya. He gave formulas to calculate the motions of the sun, the moon and the planets, and proposed that the earth spins on its axis, which explains the alternation of day and night. He gave the length of a year as 365 days, 6 hours, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds, just a few minutes off from the modern value, 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 45 seconds. Ryabha also provided a fair estimate of the size of the Earth and a correct explanation for solar and lunar eclipses. His work became the foundation for further scientific advances in India and beyond. In mathematics, Aryabhatta described a number of techniques of calculation and equation solving, some of which you learn at school without knowing that they were first formulated 1500 years ago. Varamihira, he was a mathematician, astronomer and astrologer from the same period. He lived in Ujjain, a city famous for its tradition of learning and scholarship. His encyclopedic work, Brihat Sanghit, covered a wide range of subjects from astronomy and astrology to weather forecasting, architecture, town planning, and even farming. His ability to observe the world, apply logical reasoning, and combine it with traditional knowledge made him a pioneer in science. Fig. 7.14. The Yakha's message to the clouds, an image from Meghattam. Klitsa. Little is known about Klitsa's life. Legends suggest that he was once ridiculed by others, which motivated him to work hard and transform his life. He is renowned for his contributions to Sanskrit literature and exquisitely refined poetry. One of his celebrated compositions is Meghattam, or The Cloud Messenger. It tells the story of a Yakha, minor deity, who, after being banished from his home by his master, sends a message to his beloved through a passing cloud. Apart from the many emotions of love, the poem describes in great detail the landscapes and weather of North India on its journey to the beloved. Don't miss out. Did you know that Ayurveda got codified during the Gupta period? This Indian traditional system of medicine has much older roots, going back several centuries BCE. Texts like the Charka Sahit and Sushruta Sahit, which laid the foundation for Ayurvedic practices still in use today, were compiled and given their final shape during the Gupta period. They deal with a wide range of topics: the cataloging and diagnosing of diseases, their treatments, the importance of diet in maintaining good health, the preparation of medicines, and surgical techniques advanced for their time. Importantly, Ayurveda emphasizes holistic healing and a deep connection between the mind, body, and nature. The quest for beauty. The Gupta rulers created a supportive environment where creativity and craftsmanship thrived. Some of the iconic works of history were produced during this time. Many key centers of art emerged during these times, including Essayvith Macronaranevith Macronth near Varanasi in present-day Uttar Pradesh, known for its exquisite sculptures of the Buddha, and the awe-inspiring Ajanta caves in present-day Maharashtra. The rock-cut caves and detailed carvings of deities at Udaygiri, Madhya Pradesh, are another example of this abundant artistic production. Gupta art, as it is sometimes called, set high standards of aesthetics and beauty that left a lasting impact. See figures 7.15 to 7.18. The decline of the Guptas. By the 6th century CE, the Gupta Empire began showing signs of decline as the later rulers faced challenges from external invasions. The fierce Hutt tribe from Central Asia repeatedly attacked the empire, weakening its control over North India. At the same time, the rise of powerful regional rulers led to internal conflicts. However, was this truly the end, or the beginning of a period that marked a turning point in Indian history? We will explore this question in the next part of this book. Meanwhile, in the south and northeast, let us go back to the map in Fig. 7.8. While the Guptas ruled in the north, the Pallavas emerged as a powerful dynasty in the south, gradually consolidating their power in parts of present-day Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. Their origins are not clearly known, but they appear to have been a tributary power under the Stavanas, whom we encountered in the previous chapter, and to have gained power as the Stavanas declined. The Pallavas were also great patrons of art and architecture. Most of them were devotees of Shiva and are credited with constructing magnificent temples and rock-cut caves, some of which we will visit when we explore classical Indian architecture. The capital of the Pallavas, Kanchipuram, in present-day Tamil Nadu, often known as the City of 1,000 Temples, developed as one of the major centers of learning in the south. The establishment of ghats, centers of learning that emerged during the reign of the Stavanas, fostered an environment for education and intellectual growth. In the northeastern region, the Kmarpa kingdom, ruled by the Varman dynasty, extended over the Brahmaputra valley, broadly, present-day Assam, and northern parts of present-day Bengal and Bangladesh. An ancient name for the Brahmaputra valley of Assam is Pragjyotiha, mentioned in the Ramya and Mahabharata. The latter text mentions Bhagdatta, king of Pragjyotiha, modern-day Assam, as fighting on the side of the Kauravas in the Great War, and some historical rulers claimed him among their ancestors. Be that as it may, the Kmarpa kingdom was a prominent cultural and political center. Temples and monasteries flourished as hubs of learning. Various aspects of Gupta art. Fig. 7.15.1 to 7.15.3. In the third image, these terracotta sculptures from the Gupta period, Ahichhatra, western Uttar Pradesh, depict India's sacred rivers, Ganga and Yamuna. Their varnas distinguish them. Ganga stands on a makra, a mythical creature akin to a crocodile, while Yamuna stands on a tortoise. Water flows over their heads, and the pot is another reminder of their manifestation as rivers. Fig. 7.16. Left, Deoghar, Uttar Pradesh. Right, Vihu on Heng from Dehvatra temple. Fig. 7.17. The renowned Ajanta caves were carved out during this period with the support of the Guptas and Vakas. Left, an elaborate cave replicating a temple with a central stpa from which a seated Buddha emerges. Note the arched roof imitating wooden beams. Right, a painting of Bodhisattva Padmapi. Instead, he let the local kings, including the Pallavas, keep their thrones as long as they accepted his rule and paid tribute. This helped maintain peaceful relations. Under similar conditions, in the northeast, Samudragupta defeated the ruler of Kmarpa but did not take direct control. By now, we have seen this pattern recur quite a few times. The Gupta period was a time of remarkable progress. Its influence stretched far beyond the empire, shaping art, science, literature, and governance for centuries. Advances in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and metallurgy, among other fields, laid the foundation for future scientific and technological growth, while beautiful temples and Sanskrit literature continue to inspire today. The Guptas created a stable and prosperous society, setting a model for future rulers. Their legacy is still alive in India's culture, traditions, and way of life, marking this era as one of the high points in Indian history. Before we move on, the Gupta kings consolidated their power through military campaigns, land grants, and matrimonial alliances to ensure stability in the empire. The period saw remarkable contributions in the fields of art, literature, science, and mathematics. Other than the Guptas, dynasties like Vakas, Pallavas, and Varmans ruled in their respective regions, making this period full of cultural and intellectual vibrancy. Thanks for watching.